going on, Fourth and Inches podcast listeners? You got Dan, Kevin, Stevie P coming at you. What's going on, fellas?
What's is going on, world?
What's up, everybody?
All right, and today we have a guest, one of the members of our listening leagues. We like to welcome Clay Callenber with us. What's going on, Clay?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me.
All right, so
welcome.
So today we are going to preview or review last night's game. We're going to get into the news. We're going to review last night's game, and we're going to preview the weekend. So, with that said, Stevie P, get into the news.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
All right, guys, in the news today, Le'Veon Bell, MRI revealed no serious damage. So that is good news to all you Le'Veon Bell owners. Marquise Brown remained limited in Thursday's practice, but is expected to be ready for Sunday's game against the Cardinals. We have Stephon Diggs with the hamstring is absent from the Week 2 injury report, which is good. Let's hope he gets some targets and Kirk Cousins throws more than 10 passes in this game. Juju Smith-Schuster was upgraded to full in practice Thursday. That's a big deal. Let's see. Greg Olsen is active. Well, we already seen that from the Bucs yesterday. The Miami Herald reports right tackle Julian Davenport could be placed on injured reserve. We already know he did. Tyler Lockett returned to the Seahawks practice Thursday, getting a limited session. That's good news, and it looks like he is definitely playing this week. In Antonio Brown news, we have Antonio Brown's going to play this weekend. That's all we know, so that's where we're going to leave that. Not going to read any more Antonio Brown news. Minkah Fitzpatrick was granted his permission to seek a trade, so looks like Minkah wants to go bye-bye. And actually, it's not for usage. From what we understand, it's the way they're using him, not the team being terrible. Joe Mixon returned to practice Friday. Jordan Raanan, the Dolphins are seeking a first-round pick trade talks for Minkah Fitzpatrick. He just got him last year. I hope they get at least that. Ben Stendig of The Athletic, there is no less hope of Jordan Reed concussion returning in Week 2. So, if you're hoping and praying on Jordan Reed, try to find a better option. You should have one anyway. Patriots coach Bill Belichick said Antonio Brown has a long way to go in learning the team's offense. That's kind of self-explanatory. Mark Andrews, undisclosed, did not practice Friday. Keep your eye on that, but all indication is that he is going to play. Le'Veon Bell is expected to play. Sterling Shepard is out against the Bills this week. That is a big deal. Dante Pettis said he's back to norm and expects to play a bigger role in Week 2 after being limited to 2 snaps in last week's opener at Tampa Bay. Nick Bosa returned to practice on Friday. That's a big deal because he looked really good last week. Joe Mixon, read that. Coach Bill O'Brien stated that wide receiver Kiki Cutie is trending towards being able to play this week. Hopefully we can see some Kiki out there and how he's used in this offense now that they have Kenny Stills. Mike Williams' knee returned to practice on Friday. That's big because we thought he was going to miss some time. Now we're going to Coach Pete Carroll told reporters Friday that wide receiver Tyler Lockett is fine after missing practice Wednesday. So that's promising. We already got through that. Redskins running back Darius Geis was placed on injured reserve. If you were hoping to see the Darius Geis breakout this season, you're going to have to wait a little bit. Bears tight end Trey Burton is questionable for the team's Week 2 matchup against the Broncos. That sucks. Albert Wilson, hip and a calf, has been ruled out for the Week 2 matchup against the Patriots. Coach Adam Gaines reports Friday that Le'Veon Bell's shoulder, blah, blah, blah. Anthony Lynn told reporters Friday that Mike Williams' knee's questionable is a game-time decision. So he'll be a game-time decision. So make sure you check it out before 11:30 game time. Before game time is when they let out inactives, so make sure you check that out. Chiefs left tackle Eric Fisher is questionable for the team's Week 2 matchup against the Raiders. We read Juju News. Cornerback Joe Hayden is questionable for the team's Week 2 matchup against the Seahawks. DeAndre Hopkins is good to go for the Texans' Week 2 matchup against the Jaguars. And let's see. Kiki QT, we read that. The Ravens listed each of Mark Andrews, Marquise Brown, and Mark Ingram as questionable for the Week 2 matchup against the Cardinals. So, keep an eye on those guys. Make sure they are playing. Jeremy Fowler has reported that Melvin Gordon will report to the Chargers at some point in 2019. That tells us absolutely nothing. Redskins sign Aaron Colvin. It doesn't look like there's a whole lot more, news here. Last thing here, Bruce Arians said O.J. Howard can play a heck of a lot better than he's playing.
And I'm sure his fantasy owners agree.
Dude, that was serious yesterday. I'll tell you what, I thought OJ, at this point, I can admit that I was seriously wrong about OJ against, Evan Ingram. So far, that looks like it's not even going to be a competition. He is just not being targeted at all.
Did he get any targets? I mean, I don't remember him seeing. I know he didn't have a catch. Did he get any targets?
That was one of the news articles, is that he didn't
even get targeted.
He didn't get targeted.
He got targeted one time, but he had a PI called against him that basically erased it.
Yeah, that's right. That's when we texted and said, he can't even complete the pass where he's, can't even complete a pass where he's got interference on him, because Jameis was terrible. We might as well just get into that game now, because we're obviously talking about it. So Tampa Bay wins 20-14 last night over the Panthers. Obviously, anybody who watched the game, this was a little bit rough quarterback play.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Cam was all over the place. Jameis was not much better. The Tampa Bay defense obviously keyed on McCaffrey and just had him shut down the whole game. A couple of the receivers, DJ Moore had a nice game when it all got boiled down to, I think he had 9 for 89. Curtis Samuel 5 for 91. Greg Olsen 6 for 110. So, Greg Olsen was really, really, really solid last night, especially considering where he was drafted at. He's looking like he could be a solid, a solid late round pick for guys for owners that drafted him, because first game he wasn't that productive, but he did see 9 targets, and in this game he saw another 9 targets, caught 6 for 110. That's a hell of a day from your tight end. From the Bucs side of the ball, you had Peyton Barber literally got almost all of the work running the ball. He had 23 of 82 for a touchdown. Only 3.6 yards per carry. There was some runs where he looked good, and then other ones where he didn't get back to the line of scrimmage. Did a little too much dancing in the backfield. Chris Godwin was the breakout star yesterday. 8 for 121 in a touchdown, and he is being ultra targeted in that offense. He actually looks like he's more viable than Mike Evans at this point. Mike Evans did see 8 targets, but only caught 4 for 61. There was a couple times where Jameis targeted Mike Evans and was just completely inaccurate on the passes. So other than that, and as we said, O.J. Howard did not receive 1 target in this game. He's really frustrating owners.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Just watching the game, the Buccaneers defensive line is really good. It's a lot better than anybody would have anticipated going into this season. Shaq Barrett looked like a Pro Bowler yesterday. He was just getting sack after sack. Cam just, and Cam, if you watch him in the pocket, he just, I don't know if the ankle was bothering him. I know they kept saying the ankle, Ron Rivera after the game said the ankle wasn't an issue, but Cam just didn't look like he was able to get away from anybody out in the backfield, not his normal self. And, the Buccaneers took it to him. They decided they were going to take away Christian McCaffrey, and they were going to make sure that he wasn't the one who beat them. And that's what I saw. I saw a team that without Christian McCaffrey really being a huge part of the offense, Cam had to start making some throws, and he was overthrowing guys. He was throwing balls in the dirt. He was just super inaccurate, and that's going to kill. If Cam is not going to run, Cam is not the fantasy quarterback that you drafted, because the reason Cam goes as a top 8 quarterback almost every year since he's been in the league is because he can run the ball and he can score touchdowns, using his legs. And if he's not going to do that, on the half-yard line, they're not going to give it to Cam to jump over the pile and get a touchdown there, which we all have seen Cam do hundreds of times, then that's going to be an issue. So, for me, I definitely think we need to keep an eye on that. But, for the rest of this game, it was a rain game. The passing game was a little bit affected by it, and I wasn't impressed by really, too much more. I think that Cam didn't look like Cam, and Jameis Winston was just literally a game manager.
Yeah, for me, that game, how last Thursday I said that Matt Nagy lost that game for them. I feel like Todd Bowles won that game for Tampa Bay. He took Christian McCaffrey right out of the game. Like like you said, Steve, he basically said, Cam, if they're going to beat us, Cam's going to be the one to beat us, and I'm going to put a ton of pressure on them. And they did. And we've talked that Tampa Bay is not the strongest in the cornerback position, but they held up. Cam got his yards in garbage time, and statistically his numbers looked a lot better than his performance did. But for I think Todd Bowles was the MVP of that game. He put together a lot of packages, a lot of sneaky blitzes, and they came out on top. Wasn't the prettiest looking game on either end. I'm not saying that and I'll touch on the Mike Evans thing. I mean, I think that Carolina came with a similar game plan where they were saying, we're going to take away your best receiver, and Chris Godwin beat him, and he beat him bad. So, they were thankful, lucky that they had Chris Godwin out there making plays, because no one else on that offense besides Peyton Barber with a couple runs really did anything else. So it was, they just, at the end of the day, Carolina settled for field goals, and Tampa Bay put the ball in the end zone a few extra times. So got anything you want to add to this game, Clay?
Well, I think the most frustrating part of this Tampa Bay team is their backfield. I mean, last week, it was Peyton Barber that was starting, and then Ronald Jones ended up getting most of the carries. And then this week, it was all the talk about Ronald. Peyton Barber ended up getting the bulk of the carries. So, as a fantasy owner, this backfield, it's so frustrating. Who are you going to beat? I think that's my biggest takeaway from this game.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Ronald Jones talk was getting super loud over the weekend, after that Sunday game. And, after this game, you have to really wonder if that was just coach speak and, Ronald Jones is not going to be a big part of this offense, or if it's going to be an issue where, Peyton Barber is just a guy they trust a little more. You know what I mean? So you obviously can't play Jones until you see something more.
Yep, I totally agree. We came into this game, I think, we even had questions on the fantasy life starts with Ronald Jones. Do you play Ronald Jones in this game over, there was some names thrown out there that were just crazy. If you're starting guys like this early in the season, man, I feel bad for your fantasy teams. But, some people were asking about Ronald Jones, and, I mean, I thought he was going to clearly get the work this week over Peyton Barber, because even Bruce Arians said we're going to go with the hot hand, and last week the hot hand was Ronald Jones. So, when it boils down to it, this backfield might be a little tough to decide who we're going to start week in, week out, and, it's kind of a wait-and-see thing. All right, so with that being the case, let's move on to preview this Sunday's games. We are going to start with the Cowboys and Redskins. Dan, you want to start off in this one?
Yeah, it should be a clear-cut Cowboys win. They are obviously the much more talented team. They looked awesome against the Giants. Washington looked great against Philly in the first half. but it's a division game, and if you just never know what you're getting out of division games. I mean, it's like yesterday's game had a 6.5 point spread, and Tampa Bay won by 6. So you never know what you're gonna get. Um, I think that Dallas does win, and I think you got to start all your main guys that are, that you started last week. You definitely start. I think if you have Dak, you got to ride the hot hand. Unless you have Dak as your backup and you have Mahomes or Drew Brees, to me, then those are probably options ahead of him. But other than that, I mean, I'm starting Dak for sure, especially against this Washington team because Carson Wentz lit him up in that second half. So yeah, I mean all the main guys. Randall Cobb could be an option to start if you're really hurt for somebody in that flex position. But obviously Zeke, Amari Cooper, even Michael Gallup. I put him right with right with Randall Cobb as a possibility if you need somebody, and Dallas is going to score some points, and you're a little shy about some of these other guys you have on your team. I don't think they're a bad option. On Washington's end, you don't have. We just heard today when Kev read the news that you ain't got Geis, so you're definitely not playing him. But McLaurin for sure. I think he's definitely an option because he's the only guy right now really to go to on Washington. And if you picked up AP, he's definitely going to get a ton of work. And I like Chris Thompson. I liked him last week. I like him this week. I like him every week moving forward. I've been saying a lot that he just reminds me so much of James White because he's something special out of that backfield. He catches a lot of balls. He finds ways to just find check downs constantly, and guys like that. And if you have a PPR, if you're a standard league, I don't think you start Thompson, but in PPR leagues, he's almost a must start for me because he's always in there in third downs and he's always getting a ton of check downs.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like the guys that you guys said, you're all starting. You're starting your Cowboys. Terry McLaurin is definitely a Redskin that I, would not mind starting as my wide receiver 3 or a flex if I absolutely needed him. This Cowboys defense is good, so I wouldn't expect a 140 game and a touchdown, from him again, but definitely a guy that I feel comfortable starting if need be. I'd like to see it again, but like I said, if you need him, throw him in there. Adrian Peterson is somebody that we're gonna get really into in the DFS pod. To me, he is a easy start this week. There's two things that are guaranteed in life. If you bench AP, he's gonna be pissed off and just tear you a new one, and you're gonna die. That's about it. Those are the two things that you can guarantee in life. That AP, when he runs angry, is just a menacing force. And to me, if you have AP, I think AP is not happy being sat last week. If you watched him on the sidelines, he just looked pissed off. And if they're going to feed him, let's say 18 carries in this game, I think AP, I don't even care if the Dallas Cowboys defense. I think AP is good for, 75 to 100 yards and a touchdown in this game. I really do. I think he's going to be good. And if you have him, definitely start him in FanDuel. He's like $4,400. He's insane, or $4,800. He's insanely
48.
cheap. He's $4,800. Insanely cheap. And I think DraftKings, what is he, 39, Kev?
38, I think.
Yeah, 38, 39. So,
Actually,
definitely.
Let me look it up right now, honestly, because he might even be cheaper.
He's literally in every one of my lineups, so I can even look it up.
34.
But, yeah, 3,400. You know what I mean? That's just insanely cheap. To me, that's one of those guys you just plug in at those prices. It's just get him in your lineup. You know what I mean? He's a free square. Yeah, so, for this game, the Dallas Cowboys defense, the thing about rivalry games, they always do seem to, be close. So, I wouldn't think that the Cowboys defense is any better than it normally is, but if you drafted them, you're definitely starting them. How about you, Clay? What do you feel?
I think the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to seeing is this Dallas passing attack against Washington. Washington has a pretty good defensive line, so I know Zeke's going to get his, but I'm just really interested to see Gallup and Cobb get theirs. Cooper's obviously going to get his as well. On Washington's side of the ball, like you said, AP, he's definitely a good start, but he's one of those backs that's going to need 20 carries to really bring it home for him. Chris Thompson's obviously in this situation, I think with game script going to be a really good option for especially in PPR leagues.
Definitely agree.
Yep. Yeah, I don't really have too much to add off of what you guys said. You know, I definitely think AP or Chris Thompson both could be a flex play. What Clay just said kind of reigns true with me is, this game could get out of hand, and if it gets to be a little bit of a blowout, AP might not see as many carries as he needs to get off. But for Daly, obviously, we talked about his price, and we'll get into it more tomorrow. But he's definitely a cheap option on the FanDuel and DraftKings sites. You're starting all your Cowboys at this point. Michael Gallup, is a solid flex right now. Mari Cooper last week looked like a wide receiver 1, and Dak. To me, I have him ranked number 7 on my rankings this week, so he's a QB1, and Zeke's just a man. So you're pretty much starting all your Cowboys this week. Next game we will get into is the Colts and Titans. Steve, you want to start that one?
Yeah, so, in this game, we saw what the Colts did last week. They looked a lot better than I think anybody would have expected. I wrote an article about what I thought, the Colts would be this year, and it reigned pretty true. You know what I mean? I said I wasn't scared of T.Y. I wasn't scared of, Mac. I thought those guys were still going to be right where I had them ranked. I didn't move their ranks. I didn't move them up or down. I thought they were still going to be productive, and they were. Brissett is not a bad quarterback. Brissett is, a very good backup quarterback, and if he continues to look the way he looked last week, he's going to produce fantasy points for this team. So, like I said, all the guys that we, were touting earlier, I'm still going to tout. This Tennessee Titans defense is very good. We saw that with the Browns last week, but I think the main thing we have to take away from that Browns game last week is the Brown hype. People are going to be playing the Browns like the Browns are the Super Bowl winner from last year in every game. Because when you go into a season, it's, I know you guys are Eagles fans, so you're going to remember this, the dream team. We heard that, and guess what? The Eagles saw everyone's A game because everybody was saying they were a super team and they were going to be amazing and all that. And guess what? Teams came and smashed the Eagles that season. I believe the Eagles only had 4 wins that season. Teams make
Don't
it
remind me.
Yeah, teams don't like that stuff. I mean, when you're throwing that in people's faces, like, oh yeah, we're the greatest thing since sliced bread. Teams, these guys get paid to play. You know what I mean? So if you're gonna tell me that you're the best player, come prove it. You know what I mean? Come prove it to me. That's the way it is in the NFL. That's the way it is in life. So, it's definitely one of those things that I think happened last week. But this Tennessee Titans defense is good. You're starting Derrick Henry. You're starting. Delaney Walker on that offense, and after what we saw from Corey Davis, you can't even begin to even attempt to try to start that dude. AJ Brown, I think, was a product of them not ever seeing him play and not realizing how his ability to get open is. And that dude, I toted him before the season started. I loved him. He was my second favorite wide receiver coming out of the draft this year, and he looked good last week. So not a guy that I would tell you to start right now. I would still give him a game or two to see what we're gonna see from him and what the usage is gonna be. But that's what I have on this team. I think you still are going to start the guys that you would normally start. Mac is probably more of a 3 than a 2, just going up against this defense. But, T.Y. against Adoree Jackson is going to be gangbusters. So if you're scared of starting T.Y., don't be. It's going to be very, very fun to watch this weekend.
Yeah, the Eagles got 8 wins that season, man. Give us our credit. Yeah, I actually was one of the people beforehand saying the same thing. Like with Mac, I was a little worried about T.Y. I'm not going to lie. I was a little bit worried about the passing game. I don't think Jacoby Brissett's a bad quarterback, but I just think he's more of a game manager. So I was a little bit worried about T.Y. and the passing game coming in. And obviously, T.Y. had a great game, but those tight ends, Ebron, Jack Doyle, they only had 1 catch each. So, they really didn't get off the way they the way Ebron did last year. I was a big favor of Mac even after Luck got hurt. I said this team might have to rely on Mac more, and last week's game showed that. They, especially in the second half, like they rode Marlon Mack to that win in the second half, or to get to overtime in the second half. He was just a monster in the second half. So, to me, Marlon Mack really saw an uptick off of the Andrew Luck injury. From the Titans side of the ball, I really like what they did last week too. You saw Mariota kind of distribute the ball around a little bit. Doesn't hurt that he got a 75-yard, receiving touchdown from Derrick Henry. That's not going to happen every week. But the same thing. I mean, Steve was calling for 300 touches for Derrick Henry, and he's on pace.
So far,
he's
so
on pace
good.
to win that bet. He's on pace to win that bet, and honestly, I have him in our league, so I hope he kind of does. But yeah, so other than that, going into this game, I do kind of think the Tennessee defense is very good. So I do think it could cause the Colts a little bit of problems. I actually see this kind of as like a 17-16 kind of game. I think it's going to be really tough fought battle.
Yeah, I think you guys hit all the names. Only thing I want to say is that if you have one of the Colts tight ends, I'd look for other options for this week just because of that really good Tennessee defense, and they didn't produce last week, so we don't know who Brissett is going to have chemistry with until he shows that he likes one guy more than the other. So definitely, look for another tight end or another option there. But yeah, other than that, all the guys you guys touched on. So,
How do you feel, Kai?
I think I'm just really excited to see if the bowling ball that is Derrick Henry can keep it going. I mean, he's looked good. Finally, it's taken him a couple years, but he finally looks decent. So
yeah, picking up where he left off last year.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal because I think a lot of people were nervous about Derrick Henry. I mean, even though he was going in late third, early fourth round, I still think people were nervous. I said it. I think he was going to get 300 touches. I don't know if he'll be a top 12 guy, but I think they're going to use him a whole lot this year. You know what I mean? They're gonna make sure they give him a whole lot of touches. I mean, he's a restricted free agent next year. They could let him walk or they can sign him. So I think they're going to use him to see what they want to do.
And it's even more exciting that you see Deion Lewis dropping passes and Derrick Henry actually catching them. So that's only helping him.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, if Derrick Henry starts to get passing attack, he's going to be a beast this year. He's going to be lethal. He will be a number one back, maybe even top. He'll definitely be top 10 if he starts getting some of the receiving work. Let's move on to the Seahawks and Steelers. I'll start off on this one. Steelers, for me, I expect a big bounce back game from Pittsburgh. This Seahawks secondary is not much to be desired from. You saw that with Andy Dalton going for over 400 yards last week. This could be a big week for Juju. Obviously he's healthy back at practice, so this could be a big week for Juju. I am expecting to see a couple deep balls to James Washington this week. I just think the Steelers are going to prove, Big Ben at home is a much better quarterback, and I think the Steelers are going to come in and, come in with a chip on their shoulder after that game last week because they got embarrassed. And from the Seahawks perspective, Chris Carson is an every week starter. Rashad Penny, you cannot really count on right now. He got next to nothing, the other in game one. And Chris Carson saw pretty much 80% of the workload. So, from that, you're obviously starting Tyler Lockett, for where you drafted him at, especially after looking at that Pittsburgh passing game last week. And DK Metcalf may not be a bad option in flex if you want to take a shot there. So, any one of you guys want to hop in?
Yeah, I'll just real quick. I'll just say I agree with you on the Pittsburgh thing. It's definitely a big bounce back game for them, but I thought yesterday was a big bounce back game for Carolina. I thought they were gonna, come into their own house and take care of business, and that surely didn't happen. So anything can happen here. I expect Pittsburgh to pull out a close win in this one, but it's Seattle's they got Russell Wilson, and when you have Russell Wilson, you're never out. But yeah, pretty much just the names you said, Kev. I don't really. I will say that Penny, I think, out of just about all the guys that I'm watching, on the downward spiral as far as value drop, he is decreasing and decreasing by the day. So you just anybody. I know people are probably dropping Penny, but he's definitely someone that you just have to keep a close eye on to see if he gets any kind of work over these next couple of weeks, because Carson obviously had all the load last week.
Yeah, if you watched that game last week, Jamar Taylor looked terrible against Cincy. He was just, John Ross just ate him alive. Literally everybody who played in this style, Tyler Boyd ate him alive. Ross ate him alive. Everybody was eating him alive. He was hurting. If you go on the website, look at the weekly wide receiver cornerback matchups write-ups that we do, you can see, he allowed a 74.4% catch rate last year with a 14.1 yards per catch, which is a big number. That means he's giving up some chunk yardage, and giving up basically 75% of the passes thrown his way. So going up against Juju is going to eat in this game, and I really have no worry about Juju at all. I know people are worried about Juju, and I'm not at all. I think, Big Ben is going to go off in this game. Juju's going to go off in this game. I think Connor is going to, get some receiving work. I don't know how well he's going to be able to run the ball against the Seahawks defense, because last week they looked, they basically completely took, the running game away from the Bengals. So I do think that they decided this year that their corners are terrible and that their run defense is pretty good, and they're going to focus on the run defense, and that's just the way they're going to play. They're going to run the ball. They're going to play good run defense, try to stop teams from scoring, and that's just what they're going to do. So, I can definitely see, the Seahawks defense playing that way, and the Steelers going off at home, because that's kind of what Big Ben's MO is. Big Ben eats at home, so, not worried about the Steelers. If you're planning on starting Dante Moncrief, I don't think he's an absolutely terrible start, but I would try to find a better option on the Seahawks side of the ball. Like Kev said, you're starting all of the Seahawks that are relevant. Rashad Penny is a wait and see. You probably took him in the 7th, 8th round, and you cannot, to me, you do not drop anybody you took as a potential starter and you're on your team until at least week 4. Give these guys a chance to, they're knocking off the offseason rust. So don't jump to the waiver wire dropping guys that you shouldn't be dropping, because it happens every year. People drop guys and go, oh, damn, why did I drop them? And then week 5, 6, 7, they're going off and they're like, dude, I had him on my team. I dropped him. You know what I mean? Just give these guys a chance. You know what I mean? Don't go up picking terrible players off the waiver wire and then regretting your decision. You know what I mean? Just give your team a chance. You drafted them for a reason. And then, the Seahawks, like we said, just the normal guys. Tyler Lockett is going to eat also tomorrow. Tyler Lockett, I think last week he was a product of his back being tightening up on him a little bit, and I think this week he's going to be much better. How you feel, Clay?
Well, I think you and I are in agreement that the Steelers are gonna take the Seahawks, down here. I'm just reading this right off of the NFL.com. The Steelers have an 84-point differential in games following a loss to the Patriots in the Mike Tomlin era. So, I mean, given that, and just the fact that Ben knows he can play better than that he did, and Juju could play better than he did, I just feel like the Steelers are going to beat the crap out of the Seahawks. So,
I agree. I definitely agree with that. All right, let's go on to this next game.
Next game, Bills and Giants.
Oh, I'm starting this one off.
Yeah, I was going to say, Stevie P, this one's all you.
All right, so to me in this game, I wrote this up in our, we have on the website, we also put buy low, sell high on the website. And I have seen some trade offers for Saquon Barkley. So if you can get Saquon, do it. Do it now. He is going to eat this week. Buffalo, they showed last week, if you watched that Jets game, Le'Veon Bell, hadn't played football in 17 months or whatever the hell it was, some ridiculous number. And he he looked good last week. You know what I mean? They basically were kind of taking him away in the running game, for the most part, but he did have some chunk runs, 9, 12-yard cut runs here and there. He caught the ball out of the backfield. Saquon is a completely different beast. Saquon is going to eat in this game. I think the Giants realized that they didn't give him enough touches last week, and they are going to give him his touches this week. Saquon is going to eat. I'm putting him in every single one of my DFS lineups. I just think this is a big Saquon week. Evan Ingram is a guy that I'm not super excited to start because I know how good this Bills pass defense is, and these linebackers are all fast. Milano's fast and Edmonds is fast. They just have so much speed in their linebacking core. I think they can keep up with, and they have the best tandem of safeties in the league. I don't care what anybody says. I think the Bills tandem of Poyer and Micah Hyde. Thanks, Clay. Clay helped me out there. But yeah, Micah Hyde, I think they're the best tandem of safeties in the league. And, just makes me a little bit nervous for Evan Ingram. I still think he's going to get his targets. I still think he's going to be productive, but, I wouldn't expect a 11 catch, 110 yards or whatever he had and a touchdown like he had last week. John Brown is a guy in this game that I really like. I think that the Giants, Janoris Jenkins is going to be predominantly on him, and I just don't see that being a problem for John Brown. John Brown is very shifty and quick with the long speed to be able to, do a lot of things in this offense, and he is going to be highly targeted. The running game, Devin Singletary is a guy that I think they saw last week that he is by far the best runner on this team. They're going to give Frank Gore his veteran due and let him carry the ball in the beginning of this game, but he's not the athlete that Singletary is at this point in his career. And, I think you're going to see a heavy dose of Singletary in this game. I could definitely see him getting at least, 14 touches. And with that amount of touches, I think he could be good in this game. The Giants defense just, I'm not a defense that I'm very scared of. For me, that's basically it for the Bills, and the Giants, like I said, just those two players. There's not really anybody else on the Giants that I would even consider starting. So, Bills defense I would consider because Eli is known to throw some interceptions. But, other than that, they're going to get their sacks, and, that's it.
Yeah, I'll just add on that I'm actually not real scared of Frank Gore this week if you really desperately need somebody in low end, because I think he has the potential to possibly vulture a touchdown or two, from Singletary, and that, I think that Buffalo's going to move the ball slowly down the field. I think Singletary is going to get, majority of work. Obviously, Frank Gore is going to be the starter. He's going to be getting the early carries, but if it comes down to goal line stuff, I think that they'll use Gore because of his experience, and just to, his size. So that's all I got to add to that.
Yeah, nothing really more. I love John Brown in this game. I really love John Brown. You saw him last week. He was used differently than he has in previous years. He's been mostly a deep threat. Last week, he was used predominantly as like a number one guy. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and Josh Allen was looking for him all the time. So, I do like John Brown this week. I actually have John Brown as a wide receiver too this week. Josh Allen is actually not a bad play. In DFS or DFS. Josh Allen's a pretty good play. Singletary, last week did more with less, compared to what Gore had. The splits on this game were really weird at running back because Singletary got more snaps, but Gore got more workload, but Singletary did more with what he got. So it was just a weird situation in the backfield for Buffalo. Not one you can really trust yet. And from the Giants side of the ball, Saquon and Ingram, that's all you got to worry about.
Yeah, I feel like it's a game from Ingram with Shepard not playing now. Who are they going to throw to other than Saquon and Ingram? So yeah, just like you said, Kev. Then definitely I'm looking forward to seeing Singletary ball out this weekend too. So
I agree. So let's do Patriots Dolphins. This should be quick.
Yeah. All right. So from the Dolphins, you're not starting anybody.
Nope.
End of story. Like anyone. I have Kenyon Drake on one of my teams. I just traded him today. I don't want anything to do with Miami because it don't even seem like the players on their team want anything to do with Miami.
No, they were saying that a lot of them actually requested to like be traded immediately after the game.
Yeah.
We talked about this like weeks prior to the season that this you just if you want to be relevant in fantasy football at all, stay away from this Miami Dolphins team.
Yep.
Definitely.
And from the Patriots, you're starting everyone.
Yeah, just do it for real.
Yeah.
Literally, you're starting everyone.
I would start Antonio Brown. I mean, a lot of people have been asking me. I think it's weird that people are even asking me that. But do I start Antonio Brown this week? Like, did you not see what Hollywood Brown did last week? Antonio is a much better. Don't get me wrong. He doesn't have the long speed that Hollywood got, but Antonio is going to eat in this game, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
if he's active, you got to play him. You can't sit in active.
Come on, dude. Don't even, why are you even asking? You definitely got to. Come on, don't ask. Just play him. Gordon, play him. Everybody, play him. I don't care. I'm about to tell people to start. Everyone, like literally everyone.
Rex Burkhead.
Rex Burkhead. Start them all. 59 points, dude. The Ravens put up 59 last week, bro. 59. That's a college score, homie. Oh man, that's all right. You got anything else, Clay?
Anything you want to add?
Just start your Patriots for sure, and stay away from the Dolphins.
Yeah, they've given up.
I do want to add that I think it's funny that Bill Belichick is saying that Antonio Brown has a long way to go, because I just think that's the Bill Belichick mind manipulation thing. I think Antonio Brown's going to come out and.
Dude, he's gonna have 2 touchdowns. I bet you has 2 touchdowns tomorrow. I could almost get. Come on, especially Bill Belichick. Think about Bill Belichick, right? When Bill Belichick gets annoyed with the press and you watch him, he starts getting red and he's just like, "We're on to Miami. We're on to Miami. We're on to Miami." And when you hear him start doing that, guess what? Somebody's going to eat. They're going to score a lot of points. You know what I mean, somebody's getting ready to eat in this game, boy.
Would you guys start Philip Dorsett or he back to the
no?
bench
AB's
no,
there.
He's the one. You can't start him.
You can't start.
Not with Antonio Brown. I feel like our a lot of our listeners probably, because he had such a big week last week, may have him sitting there as a pot, because it's Patriots Miami. But yeah, I agree. You just with Antonio Brown in there now, Dorsett will be lucky to get a handful of snaps in this game. So
Tom Brady has thrown to Antonio Brown in the Pro Bowl. So just so you guys know, he has thrown to Antonio Brown in his life before. But Jaguars Texans, let's do it.
Jaguars Texans. So Dan, you want to start that one off?
Yeah, I'll start on the Jaguars end, because I don't think we really have a whole lot of guys there. But this Texans defense. They're to me they're hit or miss, but you still got to you're not sitting Fournette. I mean, he's a running back 1. I know a lot of people running back 2 for a lot of people, but to me he's a running back 1 because he's just going to constantly demand so much of the share, and you got to start DD, and that's basically it for Jacksonville. As far as for Houston, Deshaun Watson never sits. If you drafted Deshaun Watson, unless he's hurt, you never sit him. You got to keep an eye on Kiki QT, but I still think even if he is active, I'm not going to play him because I don't think he's going to be up to par with the rest of these guys. I don't even think he's going to be, getting as many snaps maybe as Stills is, because Stills looked good last week, looked real good. So obviously, same thing like I said with Deshaun, you're never sitting him, you're never sitting Hopkins, and Will Fuller is a great flex every week. He's got huge potential, huge upside every week to catch balls down the field, and that's a kind in a league that, especially in a league that if you're in a league where you can get extra points for your long yardage, Will Fuller is a must. As far as the running backs go, it's we're kind of still trying to figure things out with Carlos and with Duke. I think they just trying to see who what they have. Look a lot like a 50-50 split. Carlos looked good last week. So for me, if you have better options, not just because neither of those guys I think is taking the lead role right off the bat. So if you have better options, I would definitely look into that. But if not, either one of those guys could be a flex for you. I think I think that this Jacksonville defense is good. I wouldn't start this Jacksonville defense this week up against this Houston offense. But I think, with Houston, I think it's going to be a bounce back game for them. They should have won last week. They got handed the rough end They're against going up against Breeze, but I think that they're going to have a big week. I actually took Houston in my survivor. I think they win by at least 10 to 13 this week.
I'm just super excited to watch the Ramsey and Hopkins matchup. I think that's going to be something fun to watch. And also something that I'm looking for is Deshaun Watson. Are they able to keep the pressure off of him? Because, I mean, he's on the ground a ton, and I don't know if he's going to be able to sustain that all season.
It's Andrew Luck 2.0.
Right.
Yeah, I think Laramie Tunzel had, he let off that one sack, but if he becomes the anchor to that offensive line, I do think they're going to start to gel and be a little bit better than they showed last week. But yeah, this Jacksonville Jaguars defense is good. I think Deshaun is still going to be, I still think he's going to be good this week. You're starting all your Texans, all the guys you would normally start. D-Hop, I would even start Fuller as a wide receiver 3. And, I'm not too scared of the AJ Boye matchup. I think he's going to take him away a little bit, but he's literally a one play touchdown type guy. He can get open on anybody. It doesn't matter who it is. So Fuller doesn't. If I had a better option, obviously I'm throwing a better option in, but not a guy that scares me too bad. Duke is the running back I would start here. Carlos Hyde looked good last week, but I don't know if I trust that. I think that he was excited to be on a new team and showed his excitement in that game, ran pretty well. But, Duke is the guy that I would want to roster, especially in PPR leagues. Other than that, Kenny Stills, not a guy I'm starting yet. Even Kiki QT, if Kenny Stills is going to take away from QT, I don't know if that's, I don't know if I want to hit that up. On the Jaguar side of the ball, to me, Leonard Fournette, DJ Chark, if you're desperate need, are guys that I like this week. D.D. Westbrook is to me a wide receiver 3 every single week, and a good matchup a wide receiver 2. And then that's basically it. Minshew actually looked pretty good last week. I was surprised. I know he completed a lot of balls. It was a lot of quick passes to get the ball out of his hands, but he looked accurate to me, and if he's going to stay accurate like that and be able to move the offense, that's all they need. They need to get first downs. So if he can get them first downs, and we see Leonard Fournette, how dynamic Leonard Fournette is anywhere near the red zone. The dude is just he's the human sledgehammer. That's what they called him in college. In LSU, he was the human sledgehammer, and that's what he is. So I could see him scoring a touchdown this week, and I like that.
Yeah, I do think Fournette could have a good week from that side of the ball, but I don't think you can really start. I don't think you can start Dede until you actually see what's going on. With Minshew, he looked good last week, but he was kind of thrust into action. Nobody had any kind of game tape or any kind of film on him, so to me, I'm a little worried about starting Dede this quick with a quarterback that is such an unknown. So the only Jaguar I'd start would be Fournette. And then from Jacksonville side, I would, you're not really sitting. You're never sitting Hopkins. You're never sitting Watson. I do like what I saw from the backfield. Both of them were pretty effective in week 1. But Duke Johnson clearly was on the field a lot more. So, I think if you're going to start a Texans running back, it's going to be Duke. Will Fuller is, like Steve said, he's a deep threat on any play. So to me, if you want to throw Will Fuller in your flex, I have no problem with that. And the other receivers, you kind of wait and see.
All righty.
All right. So we will get into the next game, which is the Green Bay Packers and Minnesota Vikings. Clay, this one is all you.
I don't know about all me. I guess I'm really excited for this matchup because it is the Packers Vikings, and you know how that is around here. It's like the game of the year every year. So
yeah, Clay is a Packers fan from up in that area. So yeah, that's why we put this game on him.
I think the Packers, if they don't get their heads out of their asses, this game could get away from them. Vikings defense is good, just like the Bears defenses, and if Aaron Rodgers doesn't play better, he's going to be in trouble. I am excited to see the Rhodes and the Devontae Adams matchup, but I really think the Packers are going to be able to kill the Vikings out of the slot. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is going to be a really good option there. I know Geronimo Allison's usually the slot corner or slot receiver in this offense, but I think that they might move MVS to that spot quite a bit this week. And yeah, I'm just really excited to see how they match up. Zimmer always has been killing the Packers lately, so I just hope they can come around and stick it to them.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the Minnesota Vikings. This is always a good matchup. I mean, every year we watch these two teams play, it always seems to be a fun game to watch. You know, sometimes it's a defensive struggle, sometimes it's an offensive battle. You never really know with these two teams. And for me, I actually have a feeling that this is going to be a high offensive game. I think both teams are going to be able to score this week. I just have that feeling that this is going to be, one of those higher scoring games that we don't expect. But, like Clay said, Aaron Rodgers needs to play better. If Aaron Rodgers plays to his capability, we're going to see a high scoring game here. And I think A-Rod knows he's got a good defense. And after the show that they put on last week, I know he thinks, he's happy, excited about a new defense, and he wants to show his new defense that played well for him last week that he can put up some points. So, I think that's what we're going to see this week. So on the Viking side of the ball, I like everybody. I actually, people are super scared about Aaron Jones. I still have him as a running back too. I think I have him at 22 in my rankings, and I wouldn't be super excited to start him, but I do think he's going to have a pretty good game. I could see him getting 60 to 80 yards and a possible touchdown, with 3 or 4 catches, put in there. I like MVS. He was the unquestioned number 2 wide receiver last week. If you watch that game, to me, Allison is a good player, but he just wasn't used at all. Yeah, it just wasn't targeted. So, Jimmy Graham, if you need a tight end, is good to start. On the Viking side of the ball, you're starting all your Vikings that you normally start. I'm not doing Rudolph. But Cousins, if I have a better quarterback option, I would do that because I do think the MO for this team is run, run, run. Especially with what they showed last week. If they do get a lead, they're going to run, run, run. So, Diggs, Thielen, all those guys I'm still going to put in my lineup and hope for a shootout in this game and hope that they both go off.
Yeah, I think you're starting Diggs, Thielen, and Cook. And that's pretty much it from the Minnesota side. After what we saw last week, you can't really be confident in starting Cousins. And I wouldn't want to start Rudolph. And from the Green Bay side, exactly what you said. MVS clearly looked like the number 2 receiver. So if I had to throw him out there as a flex, that would kind of be, he'd kind of be a lower flex for me. But you're definitely starting Devontae Adams, every week despite the matchup. You're definitely starting Aaron Rodgers. You drafted those guys to be starters every week. And Aaron Jones, you drafted him in the 3rd round, so he's going to be your starter every week. If you're benching Aaron Jones at this point, you might as well be trying to trade him because there's no point in you literally got to ride him out. You drafted him in the 3rd round to be your RB2. So, yeah, I mean, you're pretty much playing those 3 guys. You're pretty much playing the 3 guys from the Vikings. And if you need MVS and a flex, throw them in there.
Yep, I agree. Pretty much, in our sit starts, I've been telling people that I have a good feeling about Aaron Jones this week. I think he, even though this Minnesota defense is really tough, they're not quite. And last week was the opposite. I was telling people to not sit him, but if you had a better option, Jones was just a tough play because that Chicago Bears defensive front 4 is just ferocious. This Minnesota they're better in the linebackers section than they are up front. So I think that Aaron Jones might be able to, get that 80 yards, maybe close to that 90 yards, like Steve says. So I think Aaron Jones, he's gonna have a much better week. And if you're an Aaron Jones fan or a owner, hopefully, we won't see nearly as much Jamal Williams as we saw last week.
Yeah, and to me, with Aaron Jones, don't get down on him. These are 2 tough defenses he's going up against week 1. If you watch Devontae Freeman, he literally had nothing, no running lanes at all in the game against the Falcons Vikings game. So these 2 defenses, Chicago and Minnesota, are very, very tough. So better days are going to be ahead for Jones, even if he doesn't get off for you this week. And if you don't have Jones and he does, he winds up getting bottled up, he's definitely a good buy low candidate.
Sure.
Yes. Yes.
All right, so next game we will get into is the Chargers Lions. So, Steve, go ahead.
All right, Chargers Lions to me is, Chargers are coming to Detroit, so they have that little bit of an advantage. The Chargers, looked very good last week. Austin Eckler is a guy that, I had basically everywhere in DFS. He freaking went off. And I think it's going to be a similar game plan. Give him 12, 15 carries and give him, 4 or 5, receptions, and that's kind of the way they look like they're going to use him. And I like him again this week. Detroit's defense, made some good plays last week, but David Johnson did his thing. He was able to get open out of the backfield on that long touchdown, and if they use Eckler in the same way, that's going to be problems for them. Keenan Allen is just going to be an animal this week. I really think, if Mike Williams is banged up and no Hunter Henry, Keenan Allen is their go-to guy originally, and he's going to be even more of their go-to guy now. So, love Keenan Allen this week. I actually like Phillip Rivers this week also. I think, he's still going to do his thing. I could definitely see him getting, 303, so, Phillip Rivers is another guy, I'm not scared to start. And Justin Jackson, if I'm really in need, I would start Justin, but, I'm not feeling very confident on that one. On the Lions side of the ball, it's basically the normal guys. Galladay is a guy that makes me a little bit nervous this week. He will be seeing a whole lot of Casey Hayward, and Casey Hayward is a guy that we've seen shut down very good wide receivers for very minimal games. So, that matchup makes me a little bit nervous, but if you drafted Kenny Galladay, you're probably going to start him. Just know that if he doesn't have a very good game, it's because of the matchup. You know what I mean? I would much rather play Jones this week. Jones is definitely a guy that I would try to get in my lineup because I think he has a good matchup. Danny Amendola does not have a good matchup. I would stay away from Danny. I think Danny was a product of, a very long touchdown last week, and if he doesn't get that touchdown, he was basically 4 for 50. That's not a bad game, but not a game that I'm super excited about. 47-yard touchdown helps booster your stats, and it is what it is. Matthew Stafford, another guy that I don't know if I'm playing this week. He had a very good week last week, and me and Kev both said we liked him a lot in DFS, but not this week. Kerryon Johnson. Kerryon was not used the way we would all like him to be used. And until he is getting that big workload, he makes me nervous, especially against this Chargers front seven. They are a good front seven, and Kerryon could struggle to see, the numbers that we really want to see out of him. But don't give up on Kerryon. Don't if he has a bad game in this game, don't give up on him. Get the same thing as Aaron Jones. You want to give him a couple more weeks to figure it out, and let Matt Patricia figure out that he is the best by far back on that team.
Yeah. Far as Kerryon goes, I feel the same way. I think I said that on our podcast the other day when we did the breakdowns. We just did not see him used the way we wanted to. We were expecting him to be a little bit more of a bell cow, and you saw a lot more of C.J. Anderson than you wanted to see if you're a Kerryon Johnson owner. Far as the Lions passing attack, I kind of said, it kind of looked a little bit like Matt Patricia went a little Patriots-like. You saw a lot more from the slot and the tight end, the Julian Edelman-Gronk situation. You saw a lot less out of Marvin Jones and Kenny Galladay. Galladay still did get in the end zone, but you just didn't see them used as much. So I do think you have to, kind of pay attention to this offense and see how they're going to, work their receivers and work their targets around. If they're going to be starting to try and, use the middle of the field a little bit more, which is pretty much what Matthew Stafford never really's done. Matthew Stafford's been a guy that's targeted the outside receivers a ton in his career. And in this game, he was more so targeting Hawkinson and Amendola. So, pay attention to that game. But, Galladay, I think, he's probably a flex option this week. I don't know if I would have him considered as a wide receiver too, considering the matchup. Obviously, you're starting carry on if you drafted him.
T.J. Hawkinson, I didn't mention. You're definitely starting Hawkinson.
Definitely.
Hawkinson is Hawkinson is a week in, week out starter at this point. He was targeted enough to, put himself in top 10, tight end potential week in, week out. Marvin Jones, I probably would stay away from Marvin Jones. I was a guy that's high on him coming in, but this week I would probably stay away just because of the matchup and because I didn't really see. I didn't see Matthew Stafford really use him too much in week 1. As far as the Chargers go, Eckler was a monster, so you're starting him. Keenan Allen is going to be a target machine. He might see close to 20 targets in this game, without Hunter Henry there, with Mike Williams banged up. And Mike Williams, if you have to play him as a flex, play him. But, he's another one I would probably stay away from considering the injury. Didn't really get targeted too much in that game either. The injury was later in the game. So it wasn't like he got injured early and, didn't really just, was out for the whole game. He got injured later in the game, and previously before that, he just wasn't really used. So, to me, I think you're really only starting Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler. And if you want to go with Phillip Rivers, you can do that as well.
Yeah, not really much to add to this. You guys covered all the bases. And, just for me, I want to touch on the 2 running backs. If you got Kerryon Johnson, just don't worry about Kerryon. I was huge on him coming in, as we all were, as our, the whole Detroit coaching staff. So I think he's fine going forward. And if you got Eckler, I think don't expect the kind of performance he gave you last week, because that was just for me, I think that was just a one-off. I mean, I think he's going to produce in a good Chargers offense, but I don't think he can keep up with anywhere close to that kind of production. And like I've said, I like Justin Jackson. I think he's going to be used a lot more as the season comes on. And plus, we don't know when Melvin Gordon comes back, but they said for sure he will be back. So that's what I got on this game.
And I kind of just want to say that I'm just excited to see T.J. Hawkinson again this week. See if he can, duplicate that effort. And if he can, I mean, he puts himself in some good company up there with the top tight ends in the league.
Definitely,
yes, for sure.
For sure. T.J. Hawkinson was a monster in week 1. Yes, so next game we will get into is the 49ers Bengals. From the 49ers side of the ball, I think I'm probably only starting Kittle and Breda. Breda I do like in DFS this week. He's $5,600 in FanDuel. I'm not really sure about DraftKings. I have to look that up, but he is a cheap option, and to me, he will be getting a lot of the work. Obviously, Raheem Mostert's going to be in there as well, but I probably would stick with Breda. I won't think, to me, Mostert looked better than Breda, but I do think they're going to rely on Breda a little bit more than Mostert. And Kittle obviously is a monster. He had 8 catches. The next closest receiver on that team had 3 targets. So outside of Kittle, the ball was pretty evenly spread around. So there's nobody else I would really be starting on San Fran. And from the Bengals, if Mixon's out there, you're starting him. And if Mixon's out, you're starting Gio Bernard. And if he's out, Gio Bernard, I don't know what Gio Bernard's money situation looks like on DFS, but he's probably a really good start for DFS. Tyler Boyd, you're starting, and John Ross, you're probably starting after what you saw in week 1. He looked really good out there, and at this point he'd probably be considered for a flex for you. So if you want to start John Ross in your flex spot, that wouldn't be a bad thing.
Yeah, I'm definitely. If I got John Ross, I'm starting John Ross, and I'm feeling pretty confident about it. He looked like he looked nothing like he looked like in the NFL. He looked like in college, John Ross, and the speed. And we talked about how fast he is with and why he was so highly drafted. But from what I saw, his cuts were incredible. His footwork, his ability to get open last game was just something we have not seen out of professional John Ross in his career. And I think it's a good sign. I mean, maybe he's got a good chemistry going with Andy, but for sure that I can't sit a guy that showed to be that, there's no AJ Green yet. We don't know when AJ is coming back, but a guy that just showed that kind of ability, and we already know what John Ross's speed is. I think you definitely have to start him unless he shows you otherwise.
Yep. So for me, the 49ers, just do real quick. Breida is definitely a guy. He's 5,200, by the way, Kev, on DraftKings. But, yeah, definitely a guy that I'm, excited to start, really. Raheem Mostert, another guy that if I need a flex running, want to throw Raheem Mostert in my flex, definitely not scared to do that either. This Bengals defense I don't think is very good. On the 49ers side of the ball, Kittle and Garoppolo, I would start both of them if I needed a quarterback. Let's say you were down on Cam and didn't want to start him in this Thursday night game. You wanted to see what, Garoppolo would look like. I definitely don't have a problem with that. But yeah, Kittle's a every single week start. You're never going to even question that. And that's basically it for the 49ers defense. I like the 49ers defense also. But the Bengals side of the ball, Mixon, if you drafted him, you're starting him if he's playing. Like Kev said, Gio Bernard, definitely if Mixon does sit or if they say he's going to be limited, I'd still start Gio. And I like both, like you guys said, I like the wide receivers in this game. I think that, this is going to be a game where it's, even scoring. It's not going to be super high. I think the over-under, what is it, Dan? Like 45? I think the 45 over-under on this game, I think it is.
Yeah, this one is at the top here, actually. 46.
46. Yeah, so
Yeah,
46.
I think it opened to like 44.5, so it's actually going up a little bit.
Yeah.
I think.
So, and a 46 over-under, it's not a really high-scoring game. It could be, both teams in the 20s, maybe like a 24, 20 game, something like that, could definitely be something that happens. So, I like the Bengals wide receivers. I don't know how confident I am in Andy Dalton, but, I think this is going to be, one of those mid-tier games that you'll have 3 or 4 guys out of here that are going to actually have good games.
I think that sounds pretty good. I'm excited to see Breida, see if Breida how he can handle a full workload. Like you said, Mostert will be in there as well, but it'll be nice to see Breida get a full game in him without having anybody else behind him.
Yes, sir. All right, so
All right.
Cardinals
and
Ravens.
Ravens. Yep, Dan, why don't you start off on this one?
All right. We'll start on the Cardinals end. We talked about it a little bit on Wednesday that, someone like me, I drafted Kyler Murray. It's a tough sit because I drafted him to be my starting quarterback. But, the more I evaluate it, the more you just can't sit. You can't start him against this Baltimore defense. He's a young quarterback. They're gonna game plan against him. They're gonna really get after him, and I think they're gonna make mistakes, and you'll see it. I hope I'm wrong. I hope this kid just shines again, but the odds are definitely stacking more towards him not having a good game. Mark Ingram, I know they said he's questionable, but if he's playing, he had too good of a week last. Well, I'm sorry, we're on the Cardinals. I don't really like any of the receivers. Obviously, you're starting David Johnson because you drafted him so high. I mean, he didn't get off to a good start this year, but if anybody on this Cardinals team is going to have a bounce back game and have a decent game, it's going to be David Johnson. Not really liking any of the Cardinals receivers, especially, like I said, up against this tough Baltimore defense. Baltimore, you definitely starting Lamar Jackson. Regardless of what he did last week, he's gonna. I mean, this Arizona defense is not good, so he's on pace to have another huge week. You definitely start Mark Ingram. Yeah, he's questionable, but if he's in there, you got to start him. He had a huge week as well. I mean, Hollywood Brown didn't play a whole lot of snaps last week, which is the only thing that really worries me because when he was out there, he was a monster. So I actually have Hollywood. I had him on the bench last week, and I'll probably, until he can show me some consistency with getting snaps, it's tough to start him. I mean, I know he's got such huge play potential like he showed, but it's just tough to start him when he's on that limited snap count. Aside from that, Baltimore defense is a good option if you're looking for a defense. Justin Tucker, if you're looking for a kicker. We don't ever talk about kickers, but for some reason, I just always like Justin Tucker. It seems like he's probably one of the most consistent to ever do it. But yeah, I mean that's that's your main guys that you're pretty much going for. I mean, I don't know if you guys like any of these Arizona receivers with their matchups, but it's just for me with against this Baltimore defense, um, it's tough. Just David Johnson, really.
I think on the Cardinals side of the ball, I wouldn't mind starting Larry Fitzgerald. He looks kind of rejuvenated. And then as far as Baltimore goes, Mark Andrews is one player.
Yes, yes, yeah. I didn't talk about Andrews. You definitely got to start Andrews. We talked about him on Wednesday too. He's got the makings of a top 10, top 12 tight end for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think, the Cardinals are going to be tough to start. Larry Fitzgerald is actually a guy that I was going to mention. I think Larry is one of those guys that the way he plays football, if he's going to get targeted, he's matchup proof. He knows how to get open. He's a savvy vet. And the young kid is going to look for him because you just watched last week. Larry has that same fight he had in him, 5 years ago. Larry still looks like a guy that wants to win ball games, and if he's going to play the way he played last week, I don't care who they're playing. I'll start Larry Fitzgerald as a number 3 wide receiver every week, no matter who the matchup is. I don't think that the Ravens are going to skunk the Cardinals, so I do think they're going to have some relevant players. Larry, I think, is definitely a relevant player. Christian Kirk, if you watched that game last week, he was highly targeted. I think he had 13 targets in the game. So, Christian Kirk, with his route running ability, I think he could have a sneaky good game. I think the Cardinals are going to be a little bit better than people are giving them credit for this week. I'm not super confident, so I'm not going to tell you definitely start Kirk and start all those guys. But the 2 guys that I will tell you to start is, Fitz and David Johnson. And then on the Ravens side of the ball, start everybody. This Cardinals defense, played okay last week. Not as bad as I thought they were going to be, but they're still not a good defense. And they were at home last week. Oh no, wait, were they in Detroit?
They were in Detroit.
Yeah, they were in Detroit
last week.
So,
they didn't look bad in the second half. They looked awful in the first 2.5 quarters. They looked awful, but the second half they came together a little bit.
Yeah. So, I'm not too worried about, the Cardinals as much as everybody else. But, on the Ravens side of the ball, it's all the guys that you normally would start. I think I have Jackson as my, number 1 quarterback this week. Love him this week. I think he's going to have a big, big week. So, other than that, all those guys, Mark Andrews, all the guys that you feel confident with the Ravens starting, start them. Start them all.
Yeah, I think, Mark Ingram, you're starting. Lamar Jackson, you're starting. Mark Andrews, you're starting. I don't know if I would start Hollywood Brown yet. He only got 12 snaps or 14 snaps in the game. So I don't know how confident I would feel starting him yet. Until I see more work. I mean, obviously last week they just bum rushed the Dolphins, and I know the Cardinals defense is terrible, but like I said, 14 snaps to be on the field just to me is not enough, snap percentage for me to put you in my lineup just yet. From the Cardinals side, I would if I'm starting a receiver, I would probably start Larry Fitz. And you're definitely starting David Johnson. Kyler, I probably would stay away from this week because I think it's a tough matchup.
I agree. All right, so we are at 2:15 almost, so we're going to start speeding it up.
2:15?
Or 1:15. I'm sorry, 1:15.
Yeah,
I have the 2 set up that way.
My wife.
My
We
bad.
did not go over 2 hours yet.
All right, so we're going to start speeding it up, guys. So, Chiefs Raiders.
We have 5 games left.
Yeah, so Chiefs Raiders. I'm just gonna real quick. You're starting all your Chiefs, all the guys that you would normally start. Obviously, Reek Hill is not in this. Gonna be in this game. He's gonna be out for a couple of weeks. But starting Sammy, starting Williams, starting even LaShawn McCoy if you need him. Patrick Mahomes, no brainer. You're starting him every single week. On the Raider side of the ball, on the Chiefs side of the ball, Kelsey. All those guys are starting. Raiders side of the ball, Darren Waller, I love this week. He is going to be highly targeted again, and I like him a lot this week. Josh Jacobs, another guy I love this week. Definitely start him. I would even start David Carr if you need a quarterback. I think Derek Carr. I always say David. He's definitely a guy that is going to throw the ball a lot. If you assume that this Chiefs offense is going to score as many points as they have been scoring on a consistent basis, they're basically like 28, 30-point team. He's going to have to throw the ball. So, I don't think this Raiders defense is going to be able to stop the Chiefs offense. So, I like that guy. Terrell Williams is a guy that I really like. He was super targeted and a guy that I feel very confident in playing. And that's about it for me on this game.
Yeah, I totally agree with Tyrell Williams, especially in DFS. I have him in one of my lineups, and I think he is going for like $4,400 as still. So he's a very cheap option in DFS. Josh Jacobs, good start. Derek Carr. David Carr will probably get you 0. Derek Carr.
Every week, I promise you.
Yeah. Derek Carr, on the other hand, this week, he's going to have to catch up. They're going to play a lot of catch up in this game. So Waller, Tyrell Williams, Josh Jacobs. And if you want to start Derek Carr, say if you have Kyler Murray as your starter, Derek Carr's not a bad guy to pick up and plug in for him this week. And on the Chiefs side of the ball, start everybody. I would start Shady. I would start Damian Williams. Mahomes, Kelsey, and Watkins are obviously starting. I don't think I start McCole Hardman yet. And Robinson, obviously, but the rest of those guys, yes, you're starting.
Yeah, Kev must have looked at my lineup because he must have saw that I have Kyler Murray, and then I picked up Derek Carr to start him this week. So, yeah, it's definitely that's the option. But yeah, not really much to add to that. They named all the names. It's the over under in this one's 54. Expect fireworks. Oakland is going to have to throw a lot, so I'm hoping a big week for Derek Carr and. You know what the Chiefs are going to do. I mean, especially against this Oakland team that doesn't really have a great defense. So it should be a fun game to watch.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Saints Rams. Yep. Saints Rams. So, you want to do this, Kev, real quick?
Yeah. All right. So I think this is going to be a fun game to watch. If you remember last year, it was an extraordinary game. This year is going to be, just as entertaining. You're still starting Gurley. You're still starting all your Rams. Don't fret with Gurley or be afraid to start Gurley. We talked about this in our rankings the other day. We all still have Gurley as a top 10 running back. Don't be afraid to start Gurley. He just didn't get into the end zone because it was his time to come out because the pitch count called for it. And that's one thing I do believe Sean McVay said. And Gurley was a little pissed off that he got taken out of the game. So I do think his emotions are going to kind of hold check here, and he will get his touchdowns this week. And all your Rams, you're starting them. Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks. You drafted all those guys in the top 5 rounds. You're starting them. Jared Goff is another guy I like this week as a good quarterback to play. To me, he's a bottom end, 10, 11, 12 quarterback this week. So right at the end of that QB1. And from the Saints, you're starting Kamara. You're starting Michael Thomas. You're starting Drew Brees. Latavius Murray did not see a lot of work. Obviously, he got the, he had the long touchdown run, but when Drew Brees threw that interception in the red zone, after that, he was targeting Murray, and after that, he really wasn't used in the passing game very much. So I don't know if he did something wrong on that play or, just lack of chemistry in the passing game between him and Brees that they stopped using him. But, Murray's a guy I probably, I probably would start with caution as a flex, but I wouldn't be too excited about it seeing the workload that he got in week 1.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, not much for me to add on to that game. So if you want to, add on any names, I think Kev touched on pretty much all the ones that I would have as well.
Yeah. I'm good.
Clay, you got anything to add?
I guess, what do you guys feel about Jared Cook in this game? I know that he's been.
It's a good point. It's a good point. A lot of people probably want to know.
I haven't been high on Cook even before the preseason. I said that the Saints, to me, just once Jimmy Graham left, they stopped using the tight end as much, and you saw him kind of, you saw it with Kobe Fleener. They picked up Kobe Fleener, and everybody thought Kobe Fleener was the next great tight end, and he just never materialized there. And, you know, to me, this, like I said, they shied away from using the tight end. He only had 2 catches in the game. Really wasn't targeted very much either. So, I think if you drafted Jared Cook, hopefully you were able to pick up Darren Waller or T.J. Hawkinson on the waiver wire. I would rather start both of those guys. But Steve, how do you feel about Cook?
I have a little more confidence in Cook than you guys, but I've had a little more confidence than him all year than you guys. But I think in this game he makes me a little bit nervous only because Drew Brees, his road splits that's a real thing. That is a legit thing that happens with Drew Brees. He is much better at home than he is away. So that definitely is something that you must be aware of when starting Drew Brees and starting any of the pass catchers. Mike Thomas is really the only guy in this game that I have a whole lot of confidence in. But Cook is a guy that I think if you had drafted him, you're gonna start him again. I wouldn't be super excited and think he's gonna have a big game, but I think he'll still have 4 or 5 catches, 50 yards, 60 yards, and you're just hoping for him to get in the box. In this game.
Yep. So next game is the Bears and Broncos. This one we should wrap up pretty quick. Not really too much to me. From the Bears side of the ball, you're starting A-Rob, and in PPR you're starting Tyreek Cohen. Outside of that, I don't really think you can start anyone in this Bears offense. Mitch Trubisky did look terrible. So I would probably stay away from the Bears other than A-Rob and Tyreek Cohen. From the Broncos side of the ball, I would still be starting Phillip Lindsay, especially in PPR. He obviously was a passing down back. Emmanuel Sanders. And, how do you feel about Cortland Sutton? Cortland Sutton looked pretty good on Monday Night Football. Kind of surprised me. I didn't really expect too much out of Cortland Sutton. How do you guys feel about Cortland Sutton? Obviously, this is a tough matchup against the Bears.
Yeah, I think that I like Cortland Sutton, as a player. I just think he is not the most talented guy. I think he is good, not great as he was being touted last year. He played with Cooper Kupp in college, and I coming out of college, I said Cooper Kupp was the better player. I still believe that now. I think Cortland Sutton has a very good ability to get open deep, and he's not the greatest route runner. So if he starts developing his route running skills and becomes more proficient as a route runner, he could be good. He's definitely a guy that I don't know if I'm starting him in this game. I think that
he's going to draw Kyle Fuller. I would stay away from Sutton in this.
Exactly.
Yeah, I probably would stay away from him and Emmanuel Sanders in this game just because of the matchup. Emmanuel Sanders, you probably drafted really late too, probably like 9th, 10th round. So you probably have better options to go with. With this matchup, to me, the only guy you really can start on the Broncos side is Lindsey. And, even that, hopefully he's only your flex and not your RB2 because, this Bears defense looks ferocious still.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not really starting anybody on Denver. It's just that the way that Bears defense looked up against a much better offensive Packers team. It's just they're just gonna game plan really well against this Broncos team. I don't know what kind of chemistry or correlation they're going to have, Vic Fangio knowing his old defense type thing, I don't know if that has anything to play into it, but I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I do think that Matt Nagy is going to stat correct himself. In last week's game, as a team, they had, 14 carries? That 14, 15 carries as a team. So yeah. I do think they realize that they need to do something about that.
Yeah, I actually have the Broncos as one of my favorite defenses this week, especially in DFS. I didn't even think about that, Dan, but that's actually a really good point. Vic Fangio just came over from the Bears. He probably has a good idea about that offense. And, to me, watching what the Bears did last week, I think the Broncos defense is, really good. So to me, the Broncos defense is definitely one in DFS that I've been putting in my lineups. DraftKings, they are 2,700, so they're actually relatively cheap. So with that said, we'll move on to the next game, Eagles and Falcons.
I'll take it away.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan. You want to
I'll
start that
fly
one?
away with this one real quick. So Vegas got this one at 52.5, and I think it for sure goes over. I think that these games, these type of games, these primetime Sunday night games, indoors always seem to just be, I don't think you're going to see a defensive battle in this one. I think you're going to see two really good offenses going back and forth. So, Atlanta, you're starting Ryan, you're starting Julio for sure. And I think you're starting Calvin Ridley too for sure. And, Freeman, I know a lot of, we've been on our app, we've been getting a lot of Freeman questions. People know how good this Eagles front is. The secondary is not nearly what this Eagles front is. So a lot of people are worried about Freeman, but he's had good games against the Eagles. So I wouldn't be worried about him. You drafted Freeman too high to sit him on the bench, ride him out, see how he does. It's a primetime game. So I definitely think you got to start Freeman. And even Austin Hooper. The Eagles always have a hard time. I watch every Eagles game start to finish over the last 10 years. And the one thing that we've always have a hard time doing is stopping the tight end. I think even Austin Hooper, if you need a tight end, if you got him, it's definitely not a bad pick. On the Eagles side of the ball, obviously Carson Wentz, Alshon Jeffrey. I think D-Jack showed you enough last week where he's going to be a plug and play starting receiver for you until he shows that, otherwise that he's not going to get the ball, because we heard a lot in camp about the chemistry that Carson Wentz had with Deshaun Jackson. It was on full display on last game, and that, late that early in that third quarter, late in that second quarter. So I think you got to start Deshaun Jackson. I actually called that last week. I said that he just, his first game back to Philly was just going to be so much emotion, and it came out. And, guys like Deshaun that's going to be in there for just about every snap. He's a Hollywood Brown that's getting all the snaps, basically. He's the Hollywood before Hollywood with this big playability, and this Will Fuller with this big playability. He is the original. So you have to start Deshaun Jackson. Zach Ertz, he's a must. His targets may go down a little bit this year because of how many weapons the Eagles have, but you're not sitting Zach Ertz. Running backs, it's tough. There's just they showed last week that they favored Sproles, but it's still super committee. We're waiting for Miles Sanders to become this lead back, but if we know anything about Doug Peterson, is that he's just going to do whatever it takes to win. He does not care. He does not care if he has to split it up evenly between the three of them, if it's what's working in his offense and it's what he's going to do. So, if I had to start any of the three starters, I probably would still maybe start Sanders if you don't have any better options. But I just didn't see enough work out of Jordan Howard to start him. And I definitely just think that Sproles was just a go with the flow type thing, and I don't think he's going to see that much work this week or many weeks going forward. Yeah,
I'm not going to elaborate too much.
Yeah, I don't think we need to get into it too much. I don't think I'm starting anybody in the Eagles backfield. They were way too spread out in their usage. So I think I'm staying away from the Eagles backfield till there's more clarity. Jackson and Jeffrey and Ertz, obviously. Wentz, you're starting all those guys. From the Falcons side of the ball, Julio's my number one receiver this week. He torches the Eagles every time they play. Ridley's a good flex option. He saw last week that, he can get into the end zone, and I really like the way he fights. He wants to score every time he catches the ball. I do like the way he fights. I watched that game last week, and, Ridley kind of showed me a little something on the couple plays that he had down by the goal line. Matt Ryan, you probably drafted him to be your starter. In this game, I watching that Eagles defense, Matt Ryan is definitely, to me, a guy you want to start this week. Hooper, great start, nice, solid tight end to pick up. And to me, Freeman's going to have another tough matchup because this Eagles defense is really solid against the run. But you're probably starting Freeman because he was your third round draft pick and he's your RB2.
Yep, I don't really have anything to add.
Yeah, I'm good there too.
All right. Monday Night Football, Browns and Jets.
All right, so for the Brown side of the ball, you're starting all your guys. You know what I mean? You have to start them. At this point, that offense didn't look good last week. You hope they rebound this week. Starting Baker, starting, you're starting all the guys you know to start. I'm not going to get into everybody. Higgins is banged up, so I don't think you were really starting Higgins in too many spots unless you were desperate. But, David Njoku is the other guy that, maybe you drafted him as high and, he had that touchdown last week, but, to me, I'm not super confident in the way he played.
And he'll have Jamal Adams out there in the middle of the field too. So.
Yeah, so that's a tough matchup for him. And then OBJ is my number 2, wide receiver this week. Landry, Landry, you got to start him if you're in a PPR league. He's gonna catch, he's gonna be highly targeted. He just always is. And then on the Jets side of the ball.
Starting Le'Veon Bell, and that's it.
Yeah, you're starting Lev Bell, and that's really it. It really, really is. That's it. Because, with no
Trevor Siemian out there.
Yeah, with Trevor Siemian out there, that's rough. That's gonna, Sam Darnold, is not a great quarterback yet. I do think he's going to be good, but just you can't trust anybody on this offense. Lev Bell, and that's basically it.
Yeah,
all right,
that's pretty much it.
All right, guys. So that kind of wraps up our podcast. Really quick, is Sam Darnold like a 14-year-old kid again? What kind of grown man gets mono?
Mono, come on, dog. He's kissing girls, bro. He's rich. He's out there kissing chicks, bro.
Kissing the girls. Like, blame him for having mono at fucking 20 years old. But anyway.
Oh, Nick Chubb. Real quick, Nick Chubb. I do think this is a bounce back game for Nick Chubb. I forgot to mention that. I like Nick Chubb this week. So
yeah, you're always starting Chubb for sure.
Yeah, I do like Nick Chubb this week.
Yep. So that kind of wraps us up. So don't forget to check us out on our website at www.fourthandinchesff.com. That is www.4thandinchesff.com for a bunch of content, articles, blogs, player profiles, rankings, and of course you can subscribe to our VIP access, get a bunch of DFS information, and stay updated on these offenses with the cheat codes. And until next time, peace out, guys.
Peace out. Thanks, Clay.
Thanks for coming along, Clay.
For joining us today, Clay.
Yeah. It was an honor. Thanks.
Yeah, really appreciate it, bro. All right, everybody. Peace out, world.
See ya.
Clay was getting it.